The Catholics of Oz is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to episode 45 of The Catholics of Oz. The Catholics of Oz is a show where we discuss faith, culture, and what's been happening from an Aussie perspective. Whether it's synods or science, apostolates and apps, providence or productivity, you can hear it right now on The Catholics of Oz. Hello and welcome to episode 45 of The Catholics of Oz. My name is Lindsay Sant, one of the hosts of this show. It is so great to have you with us. And when I say us, there is only one other person joining me today, and that is my wonderful sister, Caroline Knight. Caroline, how are you today?
I am well, thank you. How are you, Lindsay? I'm
very good. I'm a bit sad. We're missing Lino today. Lino had to, one of those, it's happened before where he's been called away to work on a Saturday, so got to go when the work's there. So, yeah. So, Lino, we know you're listening and we expect you back on deck next episode in episode 46 or else.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, he can just do the next one by himself.
Great. Oh, what a great idea. Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Just Lino laughing the whole time.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, and if anyone's, we make fun of Lino all the time. In fact, we all make fun of each other. So
we do.
Yeah, and especially in his absence, it's great. It's a great way to do it. So, yeah,
that's the best way.
Yeah, because now I can't wait for him to listen to this in 2 weeks and react to it.
He'll love it. Hi, Lino.
Yeah, hey, Lino. Yeah, so before we kick the show off, we just want to remind everyone to remember to like the Catholics of Oz on the SQPN Facebook page whenever our episodes are published, and retweet our episodes on Twitter. Leave us comments. All the comments are always great. Always helps us when we see what people write about our episodes from time to time. And don't forget that you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, your favorite podcast app. In fact, why don't you just subscribe on all of them just for fun? Just have Catholics of Oz pop up 4 times on your phone, on your device at once. And, just to brighten your day.
Listen to it 4 times.
Yeah. Okay, I don't know if it was going to do that.
Maybe not. It's not a song. Yeah.
But you get to listen to our Aussie accents. I mean, that's,
and practice it.
And practice, yeah, that's right.
It takes a lot of practice.
Also, don't forget that that SQPN posts all of its shows on YouTube. So just look for SQPN on YouTube and hit the subscribe button. And don't forget also to hit the bell so that you get notifications for when new episodes of The Catholics of Oz and all the other great shows on SQPN are released. You can also leave us feedback on iTunes and other podcast directories. And this is important for us because if you leave us a lovely 5-star review, the algorithms notice us and they share us with other people. And really, as always, joining you wherever you are right now and whatever you're doing, whether you're sitting down for an hour to listen to us or whether you're doing the dishes, sitting in the car, on your commute, whatever it is that you do when you listen to the Catholics of Oz, we're happy to be right here with you. This is a two-way podcast, even though you're listening to us, but we really love the idea that we are sharing with other people and we'd love to hear from you as well. So if you can help us to share the podcast, we are very, very grateful. So, Caroline, what's been happening in your world? What have you been up to lately?
Do you really want to know?
Get us up with some gardening news. What's happening in the Knight's garden?
Okay. So
in the night garden, hey.
The night garden, okay.
All right.
That's a kids' show.
The kids' show, yes.
These funny creatures.
Let's not talk about the Ninky Nonk, shall we?
And the Wobbly Boos. And,
that's right.
The Ninky Nonks. That's true. That's actually what they're called. Anyway.
That's true. What's been happening in your garden at home, Caroline?
In my actual garden at home. So, okay, an update about me, my chickens, my cats, my vegetables to be. So, all right. So, okay, I think I've got some good tips, actually, something that I've kind of come up with. It's not a new invention, obviously, but something you can do with when you have a small garden and chickens and you want to grow vegetables. So I thought of starting a vertical garden, so like growing growing my plants on my fence. So I went down because now we can go to Bunnings. So Bunnings is our big where like a trade store. It's got gardening section. It's got everything you can.
All the hardware,
do
wood
renovations,
supplies,
everything.
Plumbing,
you need,
the whole lot, Plumbing,
yeah. So it's got awesome garden section. So
we're not sponsored by Bunnings, by the way, but if Bunnings would like to sponsor us, hit us up.
We'd be open to it.
Catholics of Oz at sqpn.com. Go for it.
That's right. And they make a nice coffee. I enjoyed my coffee yesterday. It was really
very
good.
true. Yes.
Yeah. So, do you know what it's like having a coffee? Like, because we still have to wear masks. So, like, take the mask off, drink a bit of coffee, put your mask back on. Oh, yeah. Anyway,
that's why they need masks with straws. I've been advocating for that for a long time, but everyone ignores me.
You can already get like see-through masks where the mouth part is like see-through. Now you just need a straw bit.
I don't know. I find that a bit bizarre. Just being, I
know. It's weird. It's weird. Is. No one uses them.
Yeah,
anyway,
it reminds me of like the Mully Grubs, that cartoon that show with the mouth. I know. For any Australian who knows what I'm talking about, I've haunted your life forever.
If you don't know what it is, YouTube it and sorry.
Yeah. Or don't because the song will get, it's an earworm. The song will get stuck in your head. Yeah.
It's in my head now.
Yeah, see me
anyway,
too. Can we podcast over. Your garden, Caroline. Vertical Gardens.
So, so I did look up online while we were in lockdown and couldn't go anywhere. I could have done a click and collect, but I'm that kind of person, like when it's something for the garden, I really want to look at it first. So I didn't buy it online. So I went down to Bunnings yesterday with my husband. He had some time off, so I went with him, which was nice. We had kind of like our first date in however long it's been. And they had some really cool pots. So it's like I got a set of 3 pots kind of joined together, and it's got, these ones didn't have the hooks built in, but they have holes where you can screw them into the fence. And my husband screwed them into the fence for me. So I've got now a row on my fence of pots, and I'd grown up some seedlings in the meantime of, what did I put? Cucumbers, eggplants, tomatoes, and some beans, green beans, broad beans. We call them fool in Maltese, if anyone can relate to that. So we put the pots up yesterday, and I put my seedlings in yesterday, and I also I got some herb planters as well to go on the fence, and I planted some basil out because I know if I put the basil down on the ground, chickens will just demolish it. It'll be gone. So that's what I did last time. So I guess what I'm trying to do is, because I want my garden to be a bit more productive. I've already spoken about my chickens and the compost and all of that, and I do my own fertilizer now. But I'm trying to make it more productive, and so we get eggs from the chicken now, which is great. So I'm gonna. My seedlings are looking really good, so hopefully they grow up now, and I'll start producing tomatoes and all the other vegetables from them. So it's my latest little project in the garden. So that was pretty fun. So I'm just waiting to see how we go with that.
Yeah, and we've had some beautiful spring weather. That's something that, thank God for that. Having some sunshine finally. So it's been nice to
it has.
To get back out, I guess, in the garden, do things like that. The hay fever has not been fun, but that's okay.
Yeah, how are you going with the hay fever?
I have a few moments where I had a couple of sneezing fits and, runny noses. And sometimes I sneeze at work and, people look at you. I'm like, no, it's all right.
It's not fever. COVID. Yeah.
Yes.
And we've had, update, 0 cases for 2 weeks now,
2 weeks
15
straight.
days.
Yeah, so that'll be it'll be a week ago when people listen to this podcast. But we've had double donut days, which is great.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we explained the donuts last episode, didn't we?
Yeah, because there's no cases and no deaths, so double donuts.
Donuts.
Like
lots of zeros. So that's good. Let's hope it stays that way.
Thank God. Thank God.
Yeah.
I pray though. I was watching. It's horrible around the world that there's so many cases, and I was watching PBS News yesterday with America. I knew there was a lot of cases, but they had a lot of doctors and things speaking about their experiences. It was so sad. So we're going to pray for you guys in America and everywhere.
Absolutely.
Else.
So, you're in our hearts. I know that Europe is facing, another, I think a tough winter, with COVID-19.
Yeah. Malta, the cases are rising, and because their government just doesn't want to do anything about it as well, which is horrible.
We've been seeing text messages from our family about what's happening in Malta. And
they're so scared. It's horrible.
Yeah. We are absolutely praying for all of you, and we really are praying that you'll come out on the other side as quickly as possible with this. But Yeah, be patient as it goes along. Do what needs to be done. The mask wearing is uncomfortable, but it did a lot of things for us here. It really made a difference, and we will eventually, soon enough, we'll see masks, going. That will happen.
Not if Dan Andrews has his way. He keeps saying, is it going to be part of their feature of COVID normal? So I'm not sure.
Yeah, I did read that that masks may be necessary for particular places. So, and that would make
indoors.
sense. Yeah. If you're going shopping, for now at least anyway, that's But eventually the mandatory mask wearing will disappear. The Ring of Steel is gone. So
we're allowed to drive more than 25 kilometers and go out into the countryside. So that's lovely.
Yeah. So for anyone who's facing potential mask wearing and lockdowns and things that are happening, now we went through, I think it was 197 days in the second.
Whoa, was it that long?
Yeah, we had 2 lockdowns. So the first one was about 6 to 8 weeks, and the next one was like 3 months or longer than that, with a very prolonged ending. So even though it started to end, it was like they just took one thing away at a time until we started having.
We're not fully unrestricted either. We've still got restrictions on.
Yeah. The biggest one I think was when the 4 reasons were taken away for leaving your home. So you could leave your home for whatever reason. I think for us as Catholics, the 2 big things. Well, in society, the one of the big things is family visits. So that's still limited because family transmission, unfortunately, was one of the factors. Apart from hotel quarantine, it was another factor for the spread of COVID. But the other one for us as well, the pain line we're dealing with at the moment is access to Mass and the sacrament. So there is very limited at the moment. So so there's some pain there as well. But we are praying that by Christmas something will change. So
who knows? Maybe outdoor Mass for Christmas this year.
Yeah, we'll all pray for each other. Yes, but as I said, we are accompanying you spiritually on this journey that that some of you are about to go through. Have hope. God is good. God is is in control of everything. So whatever happens at the end, God is at the end of our journey ultimately. So we have his comfort. Speaking of which,
yes.
We were looking at an article in the Melbourne Catholic, which I thought was quite interesting. It's called "Loss and Gain: A Motto for This Year." And it was written by he's from Corpus. He's the rector of Corpus Christi College, which is actually the seminary, one of the main seminaries in Melbourne, where our priests are trained or go through the period of discernment to see if the priesthood is for them. And this was written by the very Reverend Dennis Stanley, and so he was reflecting on 2020, and actually found this. Even though it was written for seminarians, it was offered to anyone who wants to read it. I thought there was a lot in here for us, and we wanted to offer this to you as our listening community as well. The link will be in our show notes, and there might be something that you find useful in here. So I might just give a very quick rundown of what's going on, and then we'll have a bit of a discussion about this, Caroline. So he begins with a quote from a novel written by Cardinal John Henry Newman. So he was saying, and I actually didn't know this either. He said Cardinal John Henry Newman wrote lots of sermons and theological books, but that's not all he wrote. He actually wrote a novel in 1848, and it's called Loss and Gain. Yes, it's called Loss and Gain, so I just had to find that. And he said it's a novel about a young man searching for faith. I actually have to look this up now because I'm really curious.
Yeah, I didn't know about it either. Cool.
Yes. So through many twists and turns, this young man is eventually received into the Catholic Church, a decision which causes great pain and disappointment to his family and friends, but which ultimately brings him to fulfillment and peace. And so he wanted to offer this to his seminarians. So Reverend Dennis Stanley wanted to offer this to his seminarians as the motto for this year, the loss and gain. So he went through, all right, here we know these are the things we've lost. As seminarians, you've lost the ability to do pastoral visits, all those things that you would be doing that help you as part of your discernment to the priesthood this year. They've been doing their theological studies at Catholic Theological College over Zoom. By the way, that's the uni I went to do my degree, just throw it in there. So I know what face-to-face learning is like there. And I know what Zoom learning in theology is like because I've been doing that this year as part of my master's degree as well. And it's so disconnected. It's good in some ways, but you miss out on so much as well. And he also talks about some other things that they've lost as well. So for example, there are some that would have been ordained as transitional deacons. So they become a deacon the year before they become a priest. And so they haven't had that yet. So the journey is prolonged. There are some who would be permanent deacons as well. I know one who actually was preparing to be a permanent deacon and has been serving at our parish at the Mass on Saturday nights. And it was delayed until this year, and now it hasn't happened this year because of COVID. So, he's patiently waiting and going through that process as well. A good friend of mine from school who's a deacon, he just went and celebrated a Mass at his parish for the first time in a very long time. He got to preach again, which he hasn't done for most of the year. So there's all these things about what we've lost over the time. But he said, what about what you've gained? Have you thought about what you've gained? And he didn't offer any suggestions. He said, I can't tell you what you've gained. You basically have to think about that yourself. So before I say anything else about what he's written here, Caroline, I thought you and I might just have a discussion about what have we gained from in this time, in this very unusual, crazy year that we probably never want to see again. The 2020, a year that's going to be with us for a long time after it's over. Caroline, what have you gained through 2020?
Yeah, now that I read that and think about what I gained, I actually did gain a lot. So first of all, I guess I gained being able to work from home, which is so incredibly convenient for me, and I really like it. And I'm really hoping that perhaps our workplace will look a bit more kindly on that kind of work for us, as more of a normal thing rather than thing that, they usually frown upon it because it's like, they're a little old-fashioned, I have to say. They just want everybody in the office, but we've been working very well from home as a department, so hopefully that's something that can continue. So I've enjoyed that. I guess I've gained my little Etsy business that I started on the side. I've been selling something every week, which I'm so proud of, very happy
well done.
with.
That's great. Yeah.
Which, it's so rewarding. It's so fun. And I guess I've gained learning more about my children because we've had them at home more. We had the school remote learning.
Yeah.
And I learned how they learn and their strengths and weaknesses and, more about their personality when they're learning at school, which has been great. So now I'm able to help them out a little bit more when they're stuck with something. So I know the way they learn and, there's things that we need to address maybe, which has really helped. And I've gained more of a communication with their teachers because now they check in on us every month or so. They give us a phone call. And so that's a new thing. They really want to check up on how we're doing, which is lovely, and how the kids are doing.
Yeah.
And the more family time in general. So I think they're all positives. Wonderful things.
Yeah.
Yeah. In a time when it's been difficult otherwise. Yeah. There's been a few things that have they're good.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking of a couple of things. So I wouldn't be able to list everything that I've gained in this podcast because I think I don't think the reflection process of that has finished yet. I think there's more to think about. And I'd say the same is for you and for a lot of people too. We're not quite out of 2020 yet, but I think, as Advent is getting closer, it's probably is a good time to sort of think back over this last year. But some of the things I know for sure that I've gained, because we've had this discussion professionally at school, and so every year we have what's called our annual review meetings where a teacher talks about what they've gained, how have they grown professionally, how have they grown, as a teacher and things like that. So I think I've got one from a professional sense, this is all school related, and one from a pastoral care, human, being a Christian sense, I guess. So from a professional sense, when we teach, we have the kind of the guiding educational philosophy that we have at my school is teaching through differentiation. So the whole idea is that you don't prepare one thing that every single student has to do, because every student is coming from a different place at a different level of understanding. So for example, if I can look at data on my students, and I know that, for example, in semester 1 this year, I had a boy in year 10 who was at year 7 level of comprehension and reading in my English class. So there's no way I'm going to expect him to do the same work as everyone else. There are some who are at year 8, there are some who are year 11, and they're very, they're all sort of the same age group roughly, but they've all, because of different experiences and for different reasons, they all have different levels of reading comprehension and writing skills and analytical skills and whatever. So we differentiate so that we can prepare something that works for them at that level, not to keep them at that level, but to help them grow, to develop their level of understanding. So boring teacher stuff out of the way. The key thing is, though, during remote learning, I had to really amplify this process, really had to go and do a deep dive, because in semester 2, I had a Year 10 English class. So our Year 10 English classes changed from semester to semester. So I had a new English class that I'd never met because of remote learning. So we actually started this class during lockdown. So I had no idea who they were. The only data I had about them was on paper, like on my computer, what I could look up about them. Anything I could glean out of their previous teachers from semester 1. And then I was learning about them as we had online lessons and looking at how individuals responded to the work we were doing or didn't respond to the work we're doing, So yeah, I was really challenged to think about how I know about my students from my professional standpoint, and really differentiating and adjusting work for them so that they could thrive while they were learning remotely. I can't say that was a success for every student, but we certainly, I don't want to give everyone the impression that I was so awesome at this, but certainly what I gained, I guess, was a greater appreciation of why we differentiate as well. So, which was important from a pastoral teacher level. We came back from remote learning 5 weeks ago now, I think it is. And so this class, all my classes, but this class in particular is the one I'm focusing on. They came back and I had students who were at all kinds of different levels now. So I had a handful that had done absolutely no work in the whole remote learning. They were like enigmas, they were ghosts, they were, I tried to get in touch and do all the teacher things that you do. I won't go through a list, but I did all the teacher things I could to get in touch and got 0 out of them. And then I had some who were just all over, like awesome, doing well, and others that needed extra help. However, I really learned to be a lot more. I tend to think I'm a fairly empathetic and patient teacher, but a lot more than ever before. And so I caught up with students individually in our first English lesson back. It was actually a 2-hour lesson because we had some 2-hour lessons to start off with. And the ones who had done absolutely no work, when I called them out individually, their faces were like they'd been called to the principal's office or something. and so I was easing their minds straight away, saying, look, you and I both know that you haven't done any work yet, but I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to see where you are and what you need and to help you. I said, I'm going to help you get over the line, but when you get over the line, we're going to get over it together. So there's been a lot of that language, and it's been, a weeks-long process since I've had those conversations of helping to move students ahead. And some are doing better than others at doing that. But I've certainly gained a greater appreciation of this idea of how Christ looked at people, and so rather than jumping on people and going, why didn't you do your work? There's been a lot more of that empathy, that trying to understand who they are, and treat them where they are as well, work with them where they are. And I feel like that there's a lot of gospel in that. Christ was critical when he needed to be, but when it came to people who were struggling, who were on the margins, who, maybe who didn't think very much of themselves and nobody thought of them either. I feel like some of my students are maybe in that position because maybe they don't think much of themselves because they've come back from remote learning and done very little. And maybe they're thinking of, I've actually had some students say to me, like students that had done work, they were saying to me, I wanted to be this or this when I finish high school, but now because of this year, I don't think it's going to happen. So yeah, so so I've had conversations with them and tried to steer them in the right direction with what the school can offer them. I think it's helped. Yeah, but anyway, I guess the point I'm trying to get is I think I've gained a greater sense of empathy and maybe a greater ability to connect with students who are struggling as well. Yeah, so that's been an important one.
That's such a good gain. And even you just speaking from a teacher's point of view, I mean, that's really good to hear that. And I feel like just having my kids' teachers speak to me, I feel like that perhaps that's something you guys have in common, like you've been able to reflect and maybe see how things can be done differently because it hasn't been face-to-face. So It's so good when you have caring teachers. I mean, you guys have really done it hard during this time because you've had to really change the way you do everything. And, so yeah, we, as parents, I guess we hold you in higher respect than we did before because, teachers who really care really pull out all the stops and have done so much for our kids during this time. So that extends to you, my brother. So
thank you. That's
I've
very
seen
that's
how
good
hard,
of you to say.
No, but I've seen how hard you've worked and how stressed you've been. So
yeah. Thank you for that. And I can certainly say that I've got a lot of colleagues who have been doing very similar things too. They've been. Some of them have been real superheroes to me too, seeing what they do and inspiring me to try harder. So I think. My positive prediction from this is that there are going to be a very oh no, that's the wrong way to put it. I'm just putting it grammatically. My English teacher head is not like what I was about to say. There are going to be teachers who are a lot more upskilled than they were before from this, and I think students will win in the years to come from what teachers have gained from this experience. We don't want to do it again. We're good now. But in Victoria especially, we've had 2 lockdowns. We're good. We've got the learning. We've learned. We're good to go now. All right. So
yeah.
All right. No more pandemics, please. You don't have to
do a course on it. You kind of just had to do it.
Yeah, crash course instead. No more pandemics, please.
No. Goodness, no.
Yeah. In 100 years, the next generation of teachers,
it's about that, isn't it? Yeah.
About that. Yeah. So I just wanted to bring up one more thing that really struck me about this this article. So he went on to talk about the themes of orientation, disorientation, and reorientation. He was telling his seminarians, you've got one great treasure that you can access, and that's your breviary. So they're, they can access the daily prayers that they say in the Liturgy of the Hours, the Divine Office. By the way, a plug for Pray Station Portable, which is a podcast, So on SQPN. So after you hear what I'm going to talk about, I reckon you should add that to your playlist as well if you haven't already. But he was saying that within there is the Psalms, and the Psalms are a powerful way for us to go forward in our faith, because a lot of things have happened to us, in our faith sense because of what we've gone through. We haven't had access to Mass like we want. Mass has been, it's been a TV event really. We've, you throw YouTube on your TV and watch Mass that way through streaming, or over Zoom or however it is that people are participating in Mass online. So we're missing that connection. And he was talking about how that can sort of shape our faith sometimes. So he said that he was referring to scholar Walter Brueggemann, who, and I hope I said that correctly because I'm pretty sure it's a German name, but anyone who's done a bit of like biblical studies will come across that name because he's a biblical scholar that's referred to all over the place. But he basically talks about these 3 themes. So he said orientation is when everything in your relationship is going well. And it makes sense. For many of us, this is a comfortable time, a time when we feel the understanding of what's happening in life. There's an inner sense of peace, calm, and purpose. And he said Psalm 8, for example, would be one you can relate to in that time, where it says, I look up at your heavens, shaped by your fingers. At the moon and the stars you set firm. What are human beings that you spare a thought for them? Or the child of Adam that you cared for him, isn't that an amazing phrase? Just that whole praise of God in that, it's not just, I love you, God. It's like how amazing you are, that you'd love us. Yeah. And he says this Psalm shows a person who's totally oriented towards God, full of worship and wonder in the light of his creation. The psalmist not only knows who the maker is, he knows the maker himself. And this is the key thing. At this point, he's got an oriented and sorted out a relationship with God, which is very strong. Not just because he knows there's a God, but because he knows God. That's the key thing here. And his maker knows him too. In this time of orientation, we find ourselves at peace in this beautiful world, knowing that we are not just a part of creation in general, but that we uniquely belong to God. So that's and we all want to be there. That's great. But we're not always there. And he said, this year as well, it might have thrown us into an unfortunate situation where remaining oriented to God is not our only experience. As Christians, we also go through a time called disorientation, where he says where we where we struggle with our relationship with God and the world around us. He said during times of disorientation, we get a better grip on what it means to walk by faith and not by sight, to believe in spite of not feeling or experiencing the presence of God. It gives the word faith a bit more grit And he said, says, doesn't it? Because suddenly there isn't that what I see, what I understand about God. It's now you need faith. Faith is that trust. Sometimes it's all I've got. So when everything is going the way it's going, all I can do is trust in God. We talked about this earlier in the podcast as well when we were talking about COVID-19. He says, an event in life like COVID-19 moves us from orientation to disorientation. In this time, we have a sense that a shift has taken place in things that we took for granted, things close to our everyday life. This shift moves us into disorientation. We have honest words of anger, hurt, depression, despair, and a deep questioning of God fills us with things like what we might find in Psalm 13, which says, "How long, O Lord, will you forget me? Forever? How long will you turn your face away from me?" And what I love, Caroline, is the honesty of the Psalms, that it has, all these different modes of, God, you're great, and God, what's going on?
I know, haven't we kind of said that ourselves in certain situations, like when you're in crisis, like, come on, I'm praying. Why aren't you doing anything about it?
Come on, what's going on? And he says, when we pray the Psalms of disorientation, we have an invitation to sit in the disorientation while God's providence unfolds in our story. That's what I love. God's presence hasn't actually gone anywhere. It's still there. We're just the ones who are having issues with connecting to it, or with comprehending it again because of all the things that are going on around us. While you're praying in that time, God is working in you. And this is where the faith, whether you think He is or not, God is working in you. He says, in this time in your prayer, you can share your doubts and fears directly with God. You can express your anger. You can demand justice, even retribution in the face of injustice. God knows what it is in our hearts, and our invitation is to allow God into our uncertainty and our vulnerability. And then he says, but the moment will come when we need to move from a context of disorientation to a new orientation. And for me, this is growth. Actually, this is when you go through this process, or this journey of orientation, disorientation, reorientation, you're actually growing your faith too. So talk about what you gain. There's something powerful in this as well. Yeah. And he says, the moment will come. I read that part. He said, thanks be to God for the believer. Disorientation is never the final word. So there's the hope.
That's true.
Yeah. Here we look to what Brueggemann calls the Psalms of Reorientation. These are when the psalmist has experienced God as our rescuer. Listen to the words of Psalm 73, which say, "My heart grew embittered. My affections dried up. I was stupid and uncomprehending, a clumsy animal in your presence. Even so, I stayed in your presence. You grasped me by the right hand. You will guide me with advice and will draw me in the wake of your glory. Who else is there for me in heaven? And with you, I lack nothing on earth." Boom. It's like, done. Just get the shivers just reading that as well.
Yeah.
Stop thinking, everyone, that faith, you need to be awesome in your faith all the time. Actually, God is walking, God knows that we have a life, and in that life, things go from great to not so great to everything in between. And like the Bible has talked about it for thousands of years before we were born, the human experience, and where God fits in that. So I think it's beautiful. He does say, and I'll just finish with this, says the movement begins to happen when we are surprised by a new gift from God, made present precisely when we thought that something was lost. We discover a new way of being and finding Emmanuel, God with us. The anger, doubt, frustration, and confusion of disorientation begins to find new truths about God and a new reality that helps us praise God even after we have spent the time in disorientation. The process is a reorientation towards God. So there's more in here, which I won't read out, but there's a few things. Did you want to say anything about that process, Caroline?
Oh, I mean, I can relate to it 100%. I think everybody can. Like, just you putting it into words of disorientation, reorientation. I mean, how many times, I know in my life anyway, when something like I feel like it's catastrophic has happened to me, I think, okay, in the very least, I've learnt, in the very least, when something terrible happens, you can't see a way out of it, just at least hold on to that faith that God's there with you. Even if you can't feel Him, even if you can't see Him working in your life at that moment, just know He's right there with you, and He's going to get you out of it. He's either going to help you to accommodate your mind to the situation so that you can deal with it. He's either going to provide you with what you need for that situation to get you through it. And we've got to learn to be patient. I know sometimes when something horrible happens, it could be anything, you know. But I mean, how you perceive it, sometimes it could be, you feels bigger in you than it really is. Maybe it's not such a big situation, but in any case, when we feel something that is totally catastrophic, I mean, I've learned, okay, I can't pray right now, but at least I'm just going to know in my mind that God's there with me. Yes. And I know that he's going to pull me out of it. And he's going to help me cope with it in whatever way it is. He may not answer my prayer the way I want it. Like, you've got to change this situation now. But can you just wave your arm and your hand and just change it all for me? Yeah. Doesn't happen that way. Just newsflash, okay? He wants us to be patient. He wants us to have that faith in him. And he wants us to keep praying to him because he's always there with us. And in one way or another, your prayer will be answered. It can be just answered in the way of, look, my child, this is just how the situation is, and you have to learn to live with it. But he'll give you the peace to do it. He'll always give you the gifts you need to deal with whatever situation. Yep. So just from personal experience, that's what I've come to that's how I deal with difficult situations now. So what you said really, you summed it up really well.
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes maybe God doesn't give us what we need, but he puts us in the presence of a person who has what we need. Because sometimes what we need is accompaniment, and God's presence, you know, can be felt through other people. People who can help us to navigate through some of those disorienting times as well. So this is what's so great, is that God is not restricted to how God acts. God can act in so many brilliant and amazing ways that we struggle to comprehend sometimes.
And you know what? We restrict God. We say you can only do it this way. And he's like, no, look. There's many ways this can be done.
Yeah, what did the Psalm say? I was stupid and clumsy like an animal in your presence. Yeah,
open your mind, have faith, be patient. Yeah. Let's sort this out together. That's what he's telling us.
Yeah. So if you are listening and you happen to be in a process of, in a moment of disorientation, have hope. It's not going to last forever. Again, God's in control. God has you in his hands. And I just think sometimes as well, sometimes we think, God, where's the answer? Why isn't the answer coming? And I think, and sometimes the answer is, have you picked up the Bible lately? And not because there's a text or a phrase, like you'll flick to a random page, oh, there's the answer. But the gospel has, thousands of years of, not the gospel, it's just like the whole Bible has thousands of years of wisdom. And sometimes I think that if we and I need to do this too a lot. My Bible reading is not awesome. I do need to do better, and I need to read it more than just when I have to study it for uni. But I think sometimes there are things in there that remind us that actually God already gave you the answer to your prayer and has been waiting for you to open up and find it. And I just think that there's we find what God has in store for us in many different kinds of ways. We find the lifeline that God has thrown to us in all kinds of ways, but it's just in that disorientation, just to have faith. And like you said, be patient, hang in there, because you're not going to be discarded or thrown aside by God. Jesus left the Spirit, the Comforter, whatever you want to call it, that he talks about when he says, when I go, I'll leave my Spirit. And we have this great assurance that God is with us, as he says, to the end of the age, to the end of time. We haven't been abandoned, and we won't be abandoned either. Wow, there's a lot to unpack.
Beautiful.
A lot to unpack there, isn't there? Anyone who's listening, I'd love to know your thoughts. Go for it. Just if you share with us, please. If you'd either share with us because you want to, even if you don't want us to share it with anyone else, we won't. You can always share things.
We still love to have a chat with you privately.
Yeah, there are listeners from time to time that we do chat with, and we love it.
Yes.
Yeah,
we love to. So,
yeah, they share things with us privately.
Message chats with you. It's fun.
Yeah. You and I both know we've had people share things with us privately and say, don't share this on your podcast, but I want to say, and we respect that. We love it.
Totally.
Yeah. Yep. So please, our listening community, over to you.
Keep it up.
yeah, we love it. All right, let's move on. So we just briefly wanted to mention, because the Catholic Church marks this in Australia as well. So now this week at time of recording, and it finishes tomorrow on Sunday for us, or a week ago when you're listening. There's a whole timey-wimey thing going on. Yeah. Bit of Doctor Who happening. Yeah. So I've been listening to Secrets of Doctor Who. So yeah, there's a shameless plug right there. So anyway, but what was I going to say? Yeah, so Australia and the Catholic Church and other faith traditions as well, we recognise Naidoc Week, which is essentially a week, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's a week to recognise again the important connections of our Indigenous people with the land of Australia, to recognise that they're the first peoples. They were here before colonization. So the current estimates are 65 years, over 65,000 years. And there's evidence of that. We have it. It's nothing new. But sometimes that can be forgotten. And so it's important for us to remember that. So there is the church puts out all kinds of resources, and I'll put out one resource from the Melbourne Catholic. It was a sermon by Father Joe Dirks, who is the provincial leader of the Blessed Sacrament Congregation in Australia. And so I'll put that in the show notes. So Caroline, Naidoc Week. What's important for us as Catholics in Naidoc Week? This is a very open question. I'm putting you on the spot there, but
you are. But sorry. That's okay.
Yeah, but what are we thinking of? What matters to us in this week?
I think it's important that we recognise the importance of our Indigenous people, their culture, their beliefs, and how special they are to us. I think it's really important to reflect on how this country came to be with the kind of population we have. For example, you and I, Lindsay, are not native to this country. Mm-hmm. We came to this country because our parents moved here from Malta, and we found it already settled the way it is. White people, all sorts of people from all over the place, and with a very small Indigenous population because of the way Australia was colonised. White people came, basically took the country for themselves, oppressed the Indigenous people, and didn't share the country with them. We kind of just took what we wanted from them. So, I, as someone who's not native here, really appreciate that I can be in this land and live on this land and share what we have now. I mean, we do have a beautiful society now, so I can't say it's horrible, but we do need to always remember our Indigenous and include them because they were here first. Yeah. They have beautiful stories, beautiful cultures. They know how to forage and eat and live in the land naturally. And I think there's so much we can learn from them. Bush medicine, bush food, like all of that, their language, everything. And, so I, as an immigrant, really do appreciate them and thank them for, having us here with them. People may have different views from me, but I personally hold that view. Sure. And so I celebrate them, Yeah. I celebrate their culture. I love their paintings, their art. Someone who has an artistic eye, they have such beautiful art. And it's so symbolic of, their culture and their beliefs and their story of creation, the dreaming, all of that. So, I just, when I see them succeeding, I'm happy for them. I saw there's a line of fashion that's just been, released earlier in the year with, beautiful patterns and things, and that's been taken off, I forgot where they launched it, but it was somewhere. And, things like that. So I celebrate them and I support them wholly. So, I find them very special people. I'm ashamed I don't have any connection personally with anyone who's Indigenous, and I feel that's a real shame. But anyway, that's my input.
Yeah, I love everything you said, and I also think that that Naidoc Week is a reminder that we need to listen as well to what they're saying, because I've heard a lot of discussions on TV and radio. It's probably earlier in my life, not as much now, but it was always about what they need. This is what they need. This is what we need to do for them. but not necessarily much in the way of listening. Now, there was the Uluru Statement, which came out last year, which says, no, this is what we want, this is what we need. So there's something to listen to. But the important thing, I think, in terms of listening, and I'm thinking more of the personal things that they talk about. There was, I've mentioned in a previous podcast, In My Blood It Runs, which was a powerful documentary of following Duan, who is an indigenous boy, I should say, around and his experiences. But one thing that really struck me, and it's a strong theme here with Naidoc Week, which I'll get to in a moment, is the connection to lands that they have. And before anyone goes, oh, nature worship, and calm down. No, it just so happens that it's a way of life. And it's a way of life that's not familiar to a lot of us. But it's a way of life that's very familiar and very integral to being an Indigenous person. In this documentary, Duan was saying that when he was in the more urban parts of Alice Springs, things were fuzzy. It was his connection was fuzzy, to land. But they would often go out as a family, camping and doing, and carrying out ritual and being together in the way that was, that's part of their culture, and the connection returns, and they feel better, and they're doing, all the natural, bush medicines, the natural, foraging for food, all the things that they do, and they were able to be who they are, just be Indigenous Australians, who they're their identity, and live it out, and they're just their more authentic self. And so, I just think the theme is we need to listen more. I need to listen more. I need to listen more. I'm still very ignorant of a lot of things about Indigenous Australians. So I think, and I sometimes look to New Zealand as the model, where they've just so beautifully integrated. I'm envious in a positive sense, that they've integrated, the culture of their Indigenous peoples into everyone. So the way they greet each other. Is it kia ora? I think they say, things.
Kia ora. Please don't say kia ora. It's really not like that.
Yeah, but just listen to the way that they greet each other. Things like that. They've integrated so beautifully, and there's no threat of anyone taking over anyone else. They've just learned to harmonize, and I think that's something that we haven't got right here. And if anyone wants to Google "Close the Gap" campaign, you'll see exactly why with the issues that we have. On that theme, the artwork, you were talking about arts. So every year there's a poster competition for Naidoc Week, and this year the winner was Tyrone Wagana from Perth. I've actually said this a couple of times, because this week I integrated into prayer at our school with some students, with some staff as well. And his artwork is called The Shape of Land. So it was chosen because it exemplifies the theme of always was, always will be. So, always was, always will be Indigenous land, or First Australians land. And it basically has the rainbow serpents surrounding the shape of the Australian island. I was going to say continent, Australian island. We're an island. And the outside of that shaping of Australia are all these colours, which is the colours of the dreaming. And the colours reflect onto the rainbow serpent, and then the rainbow serpent reflects the dreaming onto the Indigenous person who's there in the middle. And that person is connected. You can see in the way that the body is posing, is very intimately connected to the land. So that there's even from an Indigenous perspective, this artwork says a lot for us. And what was interesting was that I was putting some of this artwork into our prayer, and I went and started looking at previous artworks and from previous poster competitions, and what they've done is just amazing and beautiful. And I don't know how else to describe it, but it just provides glimpses into Indigenous Australian culture, and I'm really grateful for that. So so I guess the Australian Church is very aware of this as well. We have ministries by Indigenous Catholics for Indigenous Catholics. We have all of that as well. Anyway, just something I think that we wanted to mention, because it's an important thing for us. Did you want to say anything else, or should we move on to our next topic?
Yeah, no, I think No, that was good.
All right, let's roll on. Yeah, so we just wanted to raise a bit of some awareness of that. So Naidoc, Naidoc, if you'd like to Google and see what's happening for Naidoc Week. Caroline, it can't be a podcast without a little bit of science, and I'm going to throw this over to you because I read this article and I'm like, what's going on? I got the word microevolution, but that's about it. So, Caroline, tell us about microevolution in our human relatives.
So, I mean, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I thought it was quite an interesting story this week. So this is about an early hominid, human-like, very, very early, not a direct ancestor of us, but one of the, human-like species on the branch of evolution. So this is a species called Paranthropus Robustus, and it lived about 2 million years ago. So it's quite an ancient species. It's a relative, it's an Australopithecine species, which is one of those early species, and it's a relative of, I don't know if maybe people have heard of Lucy, which is a very, one of, it was the oldest found. It's 3 million years old, but since reading, there's another one that's been found is about 4 million years old. So we keep finding these very, very, very early and ancient skeletons and fossils of human-like species. So, and I was stressed. We didn't come from this one, okay? But I don't know which one we actually came from, but it's probably not this one. But anyway, so I just thought this was a very interesting thing to talk about. So, the first skull of Paranthropus robustus was found in 1938 and in South Africa. And it was thought at first that the males of this species were larger than females. Now, this species is a small-brained but large-toothed species. So it looks more like, I guess, if you think of, monkey species are more like, yeah, I guess anyway, they're like more like that. So it's got really big teeth and a small brain. So small head and it's kind of larger jawish type thing if you look it up.
That's how Isabel describes me sometimes as well.
I'm not getting into it. I'll just
putting that out there.
That one. Yeah. So and then since 1938, they've found another one, another skull in June 2018, and they actually scanned it to have a good look. They scanned the skulls. They had a look at this one and they had a look at the other skulls. And it gives them more information when you can scan it and have a good look rather than just physically looking at the skull. So they found a difference, which is quite interesting. And it was that the way that the two skulls chewed. So there's evidence of microevolution in this species. So what happened is that they think that this happened over a few 100,000 years, but they found in the later skull that there were some unusual twists in its roots, suggesting that a slight rotational back and forth movement with its jaw as it ate. And so this is a slight difference. When they scanned the skulls, they found this difference. And it kind of put to rest that the males were bigger than the females as well. They actually found that they're very similar. The female skulls and the male skulls were very similar. So they're trying to think, what was this difference? What can we attribute this difference to? So they're thinking that around this time in South Africa that there was some local climate change. So it used to be quite lush, green, a lot of abundance in food, and all of that. But around this time, there was evidence that South Africa was drying out. And so that's when this species came onto the scene, because it had the bigger, tougher teeth, so it was able to chew through tougher plant materials and things that you might find in a more dry climate. So after P. robustus appeared, there was the Australopithecus type.
This is why you do the science ones and not me, Caroline.
Okay. Type of this species actually went extinct, so it couldn't survive in this environment anymore.
Yeah.
Then also Homo erectus emerged, so it's a kind of Homo species, so we are Homo sapiens. So it's a similar kind of species. Well, I don't want to say human species, hominid species, humanoid species, kind of similar species. And so the transition of species happened over about a few tens of thousands of years. So what they're thinking is that the change of the climate meant that the species had to change, like I mentioned, and the chewing ability developed. So that's like, I just thought that was fascinating, that such a tiny little change in the teeth, they kind of had to adapt to survive to this situation. So that's I just thought that was an interesting article, and then it brought up lots of questions in my mind about human evolution and things like that. But,
I mean, I've heard of evolution, but microevolutions is a really hadn't really considered that was a thing.
So what will happen is that you'll have a species, but then the climate or the environment will change, and the species will have to either adapt to this new situation or die out or go extinct. And I think you can find it in, for example, when I was studying Darwin's theory of evolution. So he'd have, I think it was a series of finches, and they'd all be a little bit different. Like their beak shape would be different because one would, eat this kind of seed, one would eat that kind of thing, and the other would eat a different kind of seed. So they look basically the same, but their beaks would be the same because the types of food they had to eat, they had to adapt to eat that kind of food for the environment they lived in. So
are these called adaptations? Is that the word?
So adaptations is a way, but I mean,
I'm thinking about year 8 science here. So
but this is more like a physical change in the species, so they can adapt, yes, to the different situation. But so it's like an actual change, so a microevolution. So it's like another step down the ladder, if you like, or slight branching out of the tree. So like you have this species and it kind of changes slightly, and it becomes a little bit different. So
See, I wish my body would recognize that it would be easier to get to work and better for my survival if I had a pair of wings, but it hasn't, not happening.
Usually these changes are passed down to your offspring and not to yourself. So I mean, then we can get into all sorts of things like epigenetics and whatever. So like the changes will happen on a molecular level, and then that will be passed. So whatever's advantageous basically passes down to your offspring, and then that passes down, and like the change, then whoever is able to survive with the change survives. Whoever doesn't have the change doesn't survive, so it's kind of, and I guess, I mean, it's just kind of cool to think about. Look, I know this is a contentious issue, like in our faith, like, I mean, the human evolution, but I mean, we had to come from somewhere. So, I mean, it's just interesting to think of, and God, look, I mean, he only uses the natural processes. I don't think humans actually just popped out of nowhere. The
church has, the church pretty much agrees that we whatever process God put in place for us to come through, that's how we came. Not like, magic click of the fingers and hey, humans, boom. So it'd be great if that happened too.
I mean, and at some point, we became Homo sapien, or the humans that, the chosen ones that God made in his likeness, and we became who we are, and we've been like the way we are for a long time.
Well, talk about being patient with God. Even that process.
There you go.
What blows my mind is we think about the complexity of the universe, but then we're on a massive level, but then on a microscopic level, the complexity is just as grand and awe-inspiring, isn't it?
So complex. I mean, it's down to the molecular level. I mean, because we can't see a lot of change that happens. It actually happens in the like molecular and atomic level. They all have to work the correct. They all have to interact. Oh my gosh! And you get me going on about biochemistry and biochemical pathways and blah blah. But like everything.
This is going to be a 4-hour podcast, everyone.
But like, I guess the basic thing is that this all has the hand of God on it, because everything has to work perfectly. He created a perfect system. So the way things go are the way they go because he designed it that way, So, I mean, I guess this comes back to faith and science, where I don't think that they're different. I think that, science is because God made it, and science is because we're discovering God's creation as he made it,
What do they say? Science is about how things are made, and faith explores why things were made the way that they were. So there's
and they're just joined together like that.
Yeah, beautifully complementary. Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's have a brief discussion. Moving on from that, which is my brain is just ticking over now. It's so amazing.
Anyway, there's a lot of terminology. Yeah. Go look it up. It's interesting.
Yeah. So, and when you don't like to think so much, and you want something light and easy, there's the TV shows that we watch. So, Caroline and I wanted to have a quick discussion about the things that we've watched while she's podcasting and managing children at the same time from the looks of it.
Yes, I am. Harry just came in, he wanted some cheese rings, so I told him he's able to get them. So
yes, do not deny your children cheese rings.
Oh no, they're so yummy. Anyway.
Great, now I want cheese rings. Anyway, great, now everyone who's listening wants cheese rings too. Sorry. Yeah.
Anyway.
So the TV shows that we're watching, Caroline. So I might just mention mine really briefly, and then we'll get to yours. So I was flicking through Netflix the other night, and featured was a show called The Liberator. And I watched the preview, and I got a bit curious because I'd seen, and I absolutely love as some of the finest hours of television, this series called Band of Brothers. So Band of Brothers, for anyone who's seen it, I'm sure most of you have because it was quite popular. Band of Brothers was a HBO series following I think it was Easy Company, which was a group of soldiers who were paratroopers who landed before the invasion of Normandy, and I hope my history is correct here, and they sort of set things up or did establish a line so that then so the invasion or the D-Day landings could happen. So Band of Brothers, amazing. So when I saw this, I thought, oh, this show looks a bit Band of Brothers like. And I wasn't disappointed. The Liberator is interesting because it's about a group of soldiers called the Thunderbirds, and it's got a couple of Americans, it's got some Native American Indians, and some Mexicans. So there are the undertones of racial tension that this group went through in their training. And how they forged a bond and how they fight together as brothers in war. But what really interested me also was the way that it was created, because it's live action with real people, but they've got this. I'm not a technical person who understands media, so I'm going to tell you, but the graphics are cartoony, like it's like got this cool. This cartoon kind of overlay on it, but it's real people, and it just works for some reason. I don't know if it's because maybe that helped them to limit their sets or something, but it really works for me. I've only seen the first episode, so let me warn you all, I've only seen the first episode. There are 4 episodes in this mini series, so I hope they're all good and appropriate and everything else. I'm just warning you. Now, it's also in Australia we say MA 15+, which would be PG-13 or higher in America, I don't know, but there is swearing, like quite a bit of swearing from time to time, so don't watch it around your kids. However, the characters are interesting, the story is great, and I was not disappointed by the first episode. So at some point after I finish my essay writing, I'll have a look at the other 3, and hopefully they're just as good. So that's The Liberator on Netflix. I recommend at least episode 1. It was a really, really well told story. Caroline, you've been watching some familiar TV shows, but I think they're worth talking about. So what have you been hitting up?
So I've finally been catching up on Star Trek Discovery and The Mandalorian. I mean, because look, it's a rule that my husband and I have to watch them together. We cannot watch them on our own. So we have to find time to watch them. So I've watched 2 episodes of each so far. Yep. So we've had 4 hours of time to be able to watch something together these last couple of weeks. Yeah. I am impressed. Like with Star Trek Discovery, I have to say I love how the characters are toned down a little bit. I felt like the past couple of series, there were a couple of characters who were maybe overacting maybe a little bit. That's just my personal...
And maybe the central focus of all the problems. And
yes, that's it. And like everybody would like to have panic attacks over everything. Yeah, yes. It's like, okay, I'm kind of tend towards being a little bit of an anxious person. So as much as I loved it, it kind of stressed me out a bit. So I just love that everybody's calmed down now. Yeah. And we're focusing on really, playing our part in the story, and the stories are really well written, and I'm kind of really enjoying it more this time. I don't know if I think I can spoil a little bit by now.
Episode 1 and 2, it'd be ages ago now by now. By the way, but if you haven't watched, sorry, a couple of minor spoilers coming up, but go for it.
So I've only seen first 2 episodes of both, but I like that. I like Michael's character a little more now. I feel like it's less focused. The whole series is less focused just on her, and it's about the crew of the Discovery. And,
Yeah, I like Michael, by the way. She's a great character. However, I agree with you. I think that there's just been a bit too much of it. All depends on her. Yeah. Without Michael, we can't do anything. Yeah. So they've toned that down a lot. And even in episodes that I've watched, there's lots of hints, and some of them are quite. I think some of them are directed right at the audience. Even in episode 5 that I watched, which I won't say anything about, there was one for me, one massive. Yeah, all right. It's not about Michael anymore. It's like
Okay, okay, cool. Yeah, I love how Saru's become the captain of the ship.
I like him,
That's awesome. He's
First
a very
alien
good captain
on a series, he's great.
Yeah, I like the bar fight scene where he all of a sudden just takes control and is like, his like real defensive side comes out. He starts fighting the bad guys, and
Inner Kelpian comes out, the
Inner Kelpian. Like he tries to be all diplomatic first, and it doesn't work. So he just has to.
Okay, let's have a bar fight. Yep.
Let's have a bar fight with Philippa, with the
Empress.
So,
the Empress.
So I thought that was awesome. So I'm enjoying that series. I've only seen the first 2. I'm hoping. Well, you hinted that it does perhaps continue in that way. So
I will say one thing. The episode 3 and 4, which you're about to watch, were good, but for me, not great, but they were good, right? I mean, they got the story to where it needs to go. Episode 5, I don't know what other people's reactions are going to be, but I thought it was amazing. I loved episode 5. If I thought episode 1 was great, episode 5 is episode 1 greatness, I reckon, so far. So I think the first and the 5th episode are my top 2 at the moment. I really enjoyed it, not just because of there are treats for fans. That's not why I enjoyed it a lot. There were some other things about it that just, I don't know. It was brilliant. Yes.
All right.
Over to you.
So if I thought Discovery is great, I think the Mandalorian is awesome.
Oh my gosh,
goodness.
Isn't it so? Yes. Oh.
I am so loving it. So I mean, I loved it before, but now I just think they've knocked it out of the park.
Absolutely.
I kind of relate it to her. Okay, this is very silly, but the episodes are like playing a game of Pikmin because they have like these bosses in each one.
Yes, yeah. It's been a bit. There's a quest to complete kind of episodes.
Yes, and I like that. I kind of like that there's a new quest to complete.
Yeah,
I think
I agree.
It's cool. I mean, the first episode was great. There was that big dragon.
The Great Dragon, yep.
The Great Dragon they had to fight. And that directly, I kept texting Lindsay, it reminds me of the Mere Slug in Pikmin. That's one of the bosses you have to fight with all the little Pikmin going and fighting it and blowing it up with bombs because it's exactly what you do. So it was like I could totally relate. It was awesome. Oh my gosh, we watched the second episode last night with the spider bosses. Oh my god, it freaked me out. I don't usually mind, but all of those creepy crawly little spiders, I'm a spider fan, but not that many.
They overdid the creepy crawliness.
Yeah, oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
And
I thought for a moment, I was like, oh my gosh, am I watching The Mandalorian? Am I watching Alien?
I know, right?
With the egg opening up and the little
Yes, they freaked me out.
But does he eat it? It opens up and he eats it. Baby Yoda eats it. Is that...
Yes, yeah. But that was providing some comic relief, which was really needed because to balance out the scary. Yeah. And I loved how the X-Wings were.
X-Wings. You can put X-Wings in every episode.
they made an appearance and it just, I think that really, So
and a lot of comedy in that, that awkward discussion.
That whole scene is really good.
Can you turn your transponder on? Hang on. Oh yeah, just found it. Are you going to turn it on yet? It's all that.
It's like, I don't know. Looks broken. We can wait. Oh, look, it's fixed. And he flies off and they
so well
chase.
done.
but
Yeah.
it's so good. But
Yeah.
the ending is great. Like, should I say the ending?
Yeah, you can say the end. It's episode 2. Yeah, you can. And by the way, it's been greatly spoiled on Secrets of Star Wars, which is a show that if you love The Mandalorian,
yes.
you want a deep dive and analysis, go ahead and And
Totally.
Secrets of Star Trek, if you want to know more about, some great discussion and very funny discussion about it as well. Yeah, but yeah, go on.
Totally.
What you're going to say?
Okay, so like the ending, they're like, they want to fly off. Big spider ends up falling on their ship, crushing it, and they're like, oh, that's it. Like basically dead. And who comes to save them? Those 2 X-Wings that
X-Wing
were
pilots,
trying to chase them down and find him. They were trying to escape from them in the first place. So, so good.
Yeah, that's great.
I just wish they'd showed the frog lady with the eggs delivered. That would have been even better, but I'm sure that happened.
I won't say anything about the latest episode, but obviously the story's not finished at the end of that.
Okay,
what you've watched, so there's more to go.
So I get my thing, but yes.
I will not spoil episode 3 except to say it blew my mind. It was
cool.
Oh my gosh!
I might have to watch it without Phil. I can't really hold on.
There's some moments I was like, wow, and just where they're planning on going. I was like, ugh. If you just for anyone who, this is not a spoiler, but clearly this, all the previous Star Wars movies and whatever and series are all in continuity. And there is certainly some backstory from the Clone Wars series and Star Wars Rebels, which influences. I'll just say influences where it seems like the Mandalorian is going, and I love it. It's been great. Yeah,
it's so good. You know what? I feel like I have to go and start watching Star Wars from the beginning again now because I just feel like it. I'm in that mood now.
But that's what I like about the Mandalorian a lot is that the last trilogy, I overall I liked it. Okay, but there were a lot of things that I had to take in that I'm like, why did they do this? It's like this could have been so much better. They could have done better with that character. But overall, I was satisfied. It's a Star Wars story I could watch.
It was okay. It was acceptable. Yeah,
there was some good things, but the thing is, it could have been better. Star Wars storytellers should know better. They should plan a trilogy from start to end.
Yes. Not change it in the middle.
Not make it up as they go. Not do what J.J. Abrams had to do and close a lot of plot threads and create new ones. And actually, this is going to sound controversial, but I think J.J. Abrams was a bit of a mistake as a director. I know. The only reason, not as a director in general, but as for Star Wars, and the only reason I say this is because I've seen, his take on Star Trek, his 2 Star Trek movies, and there is so much similar in terms of the things that he uses in those that you'll find in the Star Wars movies. And it's like, J.J. Abrams, we've seen this before. Like, for example, in Star Trek, and sorry, this is a nerdy gripe now, right? But in Star Trek, for example, they, how they warp from one planet to another, right? So they travel at warp speed. It kind of gives the impression that it's almost instantaneous, like you travel at warp and then you're there.
Like they have some kind of mycelial drive or something.
Like a spore hub drive, yeah. But for example, in the first Star Trek movie that he did, they travel to Vulcan, and that's meant to take days, and it's like an hour. It feels like, you know what I mean? In Star Wars, he did the same thing. They travel in hyperspace, and it seems like they're just from one place to another, just like that. He's got no respect
but smashing one ship into another was pretty good.
I guess so. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Yeah,
that was good.
I guess. Yeah.
Sorry, that was the highlight to me.
And I know he would retort, this is storytelling, not, it's fantasy. It's not, it's not meant to be real. But and there is suspension of disbelief that we need to have, but don't make it so stupid that we have to, you know what I mean? Give us some respect, Yeah.
Maybe he took it more as a popcorn flick and just
It is very much a popcorn flick. I mean, if you come out of hyperspace in a planet's atmosphere and you can slow down that fast, it's a popcorn flick. Yeah.
And it's totally anti-science, but anyway.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So, yeah.
Don't get me started on that aspect.
Right. The point I'm trying to get at, though, is The Mandalorian is Star Wars storytelling through and through.
It's good.
It just has that original trilogy vibe. It's not, not for the sake of fan service, but for the sake of the people who make it. They know Star Wars, and they respect it, and they respect the fans. And there's suspension of disbelief, but it's not stupid. You know what I mean?
And I like
sorry for anyone who loved those trilogies. I'm not trying to be offensive or anything, but it's just my feeling.
But I do love the introduction of all sorts of characters that we know, the species that we know, the ships that we know, all of that kind of thing. And it just rounds out the story. Yeah.
And the fan service isn't gratuitous. It's subtle. It's
honest,
respectful.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Like in the first episode. So this is a spoiler for the first episode if you've seen it. Sorry, but Boba Fett's armor. Like straight away it's his armor.
Recognized it straight away.
But it's not a. In a way that's like, Boba Fett's armor is in here.
They don't mention him at all.
Yeah, it serves no purpose for the plot, but how cool is it,
Yeah.
But we just know as fans, and now it does serve the plot because clearly there's a thread, if you see the character at the very end of the episode, something, there's more threads to pick out there, but that was, but I find that to be more respectful to the story.
Yeah.
And for Star Wars fans, we want to see our franchise, we love it. It's been part of the fabric of our childhood and our lives, and
you can't really get enough, really, can you?
Yeah. And I think there's thousands of stories to tell in that universe.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we're talking about a Mandalorian now as the focus of the series, not a Jedi, or some grand epic thing. We've got some guy who does minor side quests because he's got a thing that he needs to complete. There's so many stories they can tell, and I think it's great that that they can do it respectfully, and we can watch and go, yeah, this is Star Wars. This is so, every minute of it is amazing. Yeah,
and you can feel okay about it.
Yeah. There I go off the rails a bit. But yeah.
Okay. I think it was warranted. No problem.
Yeah. And all of you who are Star Wars fans, Star Trek fans, we want to hear. Let's tell us,
Just
and don't forget Secrets of Star Wars, Secrets of Star Trek. Get onto those shows; they're all great. And if you're a sci-fi fan, Secrets of Doctor Who, for a bit of fun as well.
Totally.
Yeah. All right, so let's finish it up there because, as always, probably because I ranted, I don't know, we went over time, but
that was your fault this time.
Yeah, but because we love spending time with you.
Wasn't even my science fault this time. So there you go.
Yep. Bit of my fault. Yep.
Yeah.
I'll accept some responsibility, I guess. Yeah. So before we do finish today, we want to finish episode 45. We want to thank you very much for joining us, and we do want to thank some of our patrons. It's because of our patrons that the Catholics of Oz and the SQPN network exist. So I did it. I just did it. I did that thing, where you say ATM machine. I just said Star Quest Production Network. Network. Yeah.
SQPN.
Sorry. Yep. I'll try that again.
Or you could say the SQP network, but that doesn't really work.
It sounds terrible. So anyway, so let's try that again. It's because of our patrons that SQPN is continuing, and we are so grateful for the contributions that you make. And please contribute with your prayers as well, because that's just as important. But today, I would love to thank, on behalf of our show, Lucas W., Elliot B., Sean N., Greg O., and Jordana A. Through their generous donations at sqpn.com/give, they make it possible for the Catholics of Oz and all the other shows at StarQuest to continue. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Also, we'd love to know what you think about the things we've talked about. We had a few things to talk about today. It's quite a packed episode. We could talk
more if we had to.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, we're making a 4-hour show, like I said. Write to us, by email, which is catholicsofOz@sqpn.com. You can comment on the SQPN Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. You can comment on the page dedicated to us at sqpn.com/Oz, spelled OZ. And you can also find any relevant show notes or links to things that we've talked about as well. Don't forget, we have our own Catholics of Oz Facebook page at facebook.com/Catholics of Oz. And you can join us and discuss our latest episodes there and tell us your thoughts and introduce yourself as well. We'd love to know who you are if you listen to us. So, Caroline, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you. I hope everyone doesn't mind our sibling banter. But, yeah.
There's a lot of that, yes. There was always going to be sibling banter between the two of us. Hopefully Lino can join us next episode.
Balance us out a little bit.
Yeah, that's right.
Referee
exactly.
us.
Yeah, he's a bit of a referee, isn't he? He's like siblings. Yeah. And once again, I'm Lindsay Sant, and thank you for joining us for episode 45 of the Catholics of Oz on StarQuest.